I'm the kind of person who keeps receipts in envelopes and labels the envelopes. I pay my credit card twice a month. I don't gamble, I don't manifest. I don't do anything I can't explain in a spreadsheet. So when I say I found a painting in the trash, I'm not trying to sound whimsical. I'm saying it like I'd say I found a leaking pipe. It happened, it was inconvenient, and I dealt with it. It was late March, garbage night, and I was dragging our bins to the curb when I noticed a framed canvas propped against the dumpster behind our condo building. Not art trash. Someone had wrapped the corners in cardboard like they cared. The frame was scratched, but the painting itself, oil, thick strokes, looked intentional. A woman in a green coat, half turned, like she'd been called by name. I stood there with the lid of the dumpster banging against my shin, trying to decide if I was about to become a person who brings home garbage. Then I thought about our bank account, the part of my brain that's always doing math. My wife, Dana, had been between jobs for 6 months. My mother's assisted living deposit was due in 3 weeks. Our HOA fee had gone up. I was carrying the whole weight and I was tired, so I took the painting upstairs. Dana was on the couch, scrolling, and barely looked up when I leaned the painting against the wall. "From the trash?" she said, like she was talking about a stray cat. "It's not gross," I said. "It's clean. Someone just threw it out." People throw out ugly stuff all the time. I didn't argue. I wasn't bringing it home because it was pretty. I was bringing it home because the brushwork had that specific gallery seriousness, and because the back of the canvas had a faded label, something like L, H, and a number. There was also a signature in the bottom right corner, messy but confident. I took a picture and posted it in one of those local Facebook groups. "Any idea if this is worth anything?" I expected 3 comments: "Dumpster art LOL, love it, and check Goodwill." Instead, within an hour, I had messages that made my stomach tighten. One guy wrote, "Do not sell this yet. Please, where did you find it?" Another said, "That looks like a Hargrove." Like, the Hargrove. I didn't know any Hargrove, but I knew what it sounded like when money was hovering. The next morning, I took it to a little frame shop downtown that also did appraisals on the side. The owner, an older woman named Jean, had hands stained with walnut ink and a voice like she'd smoked for 50 years but hadn't. She set the painting on her counter and didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, very quietly, "Where did you get this?" "In the trash," I said, because I was committed to the truth, even if it made me sound unhinged. She asked me to flip it over. She ran her finger along the label, then the stretcher bar, then the signature. "I'm not an auction house," she said, "but I've seen prints of his work. This is not a print." My pulse did this weird thing, like it was trying to climb out of my throat. Jean took a step back and looked at me like I was holding a live animal. "If this is real, you need a formal authentication. You need insurance. You need to be careful who you tell." I laughed, because it was easier than admitting I was picturing my mother's medical bills evaporating. Dana called while I was still there. I told her in a calm voice, my "I'm fine" voice, what Jean had said. Dana didn't say, "Oh my God." She didn't say, "Are you serious?" She said, "Don't do anything without me." Dana came alive after that. She started using words like asset and liquidity, like she hadn't been spending her days applying to jobs and napping. She dug out a notebook, made calls, and suddenly we were sitting in a beige office across from a consultant who specialized in art valuations. The consultant didn't make promises. He took high-res photos, asked about provenance, and said he'd reach out to a conservator. When we left, Dana gripped my arm so hard it hurt. "We could pay off everything," she whispered. "Your mom's care, our mortgage. We could—" She stopped, eyes bright in a way that scared me. We could finally breathe. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe money would make us kinder, softer, more like the couple we were before adulthood became a series of invoices. Instead, that night, she asked me for the building's dumpster camera access code. "Why?" I said. "To make sure no one else claims it," she said, too quickly. That was the first time I felt something in me shift. Not fear, not excitement. Suspicion. 2 weeks later, the authentication came back. It was real. Not only real, rare. A previously undocumented piece from the early part of the artist's career. The consultant called it museum level. He also said a phrase that made me sit down in my kitchen chair like my legs had forgotten their job. Comparable works have sold in the 8-figure range. 8 figures. Dana screamed. I didn't. I stared at the faucet, at a little mineral buildup I'd been meaning to scrub, and I thought my entire life has been about preventing mistakes, and a mistake just made me rich. We signed with an auction house in New York. They sent a courier. The painting left our condo like a dignitary. Gloves, custom crate, insurance paperwork thicker than our mortgage documents. I remember the empty wall after it was gone. I remember Dana pouring wine on a Tuesday. I remember myself opening our budgeting app and just not caring for the first time in years. Then the first plot twist showed up in my email, dressed like a legal letter. A law firm contacted us on behalf of an estate. They claimed the painting was stolen property. Their letter wasn't dramatic. It was clinical, which somehow made it worse. According to them, the painting had been reported missing in 1998 from a private collection in Connecticut. The owner had died, and the estate was now actively recovering unlawfully possessed works. Dana read it 3 times, then said, "This is bullshit. We found it in the trash." I read it once and immediately started Googling found property law, like my life depended on it. Because it did. The auction house called and said they'd pause the sale until it was resolved. The consultant, who had been friendly before, now sounded like a banker discussing foreclosure. Dana, who had been radiant, turned sharp. "You told people," she accused. "I posted a picture in a neighborhood group," I said. "So you did tell people." The argument wasn't even about legality. It was about the money that had already spent itself in our minds. That night, Dana slept on the couch. I lay in our bed and listened to my own heartbeat, trying to calculate how quickly 8 figures could turn into 0. We hired a lawyer, a real one. Retainer up front, the kind of number that made me nauseous because I still had middle-class reflexes. Our lawyer, Patricia, explained it like this. If the estate could prove the painting was stolen, we could lose it. If we could show we were good faith finders and the statute of limitations applied, maybe we had a shot. But art theft is weird. Rules bend when rich people are involved. Dana hated Patricia immediately because Patricia wasn't promising us millions. She was talking about risk and settlement options. Then came twist number 2. Patricia asked for the exact location and time we found it, and for anyone who might have seen us. I told her about the dumpster behind our building. She nodded and said, "Who lives closest to that dumpster?" I shrugged. "The 3rd floor units." "Why?" "Because," she said, "if the painting came from inside the building, someone might have thrown it out intentionally to erase a trail, or because they didn't know what it was." Dana went quiet. Too quiet. Later, in the car, she said, "We should not talk to neighbors." It wasn't advice. It was an order. Part 8. I talked to neighbors anyway, not in a confrontational way. In my polite, Midwest-raised, just checking way. I asked if anyone had cleaned out an apartment recently, or if they knew who had moved. Most people shrugged. But Mrs. Klein from 3B, the kind of woman who wears perfume you can taste, mentioned something. "Oh, you mean the painter guy?" she said. "The one who passed?" His daughter was clearing his place. Tossed a lot. My stomach dropped. "Which unit?" 3C. Right above us. I remembered seeing a younger woman hauling trash bags out a month earlier. Dana had commented on it at the time. Must be nice to inherit property. I knocked on 3C. No answer. I left a note. That evening, Dana found the note carbon copy in my pocket. I hadn't even hidden it well. I just forgot I was living with someone who now inspected my movements like an accountant. "What the hell is this?" she said. "I'm trying to understand where it came from," I said. "If we can prove it wasn't stolen." "You're trying to talk us out of money," she snapped. That sentence hit me harder than any insult, because it wasn't about right and wrong anymore. It was about loyalty to the idea of being rich. The woman from 3C finally texted me. Her name was Erin. She agreed to meet in the lobby. She looked exhausted, like someone who had been living on caffeine and grief. She told me her father had been a painter who never sold much. He'd had old canvases everywhere, some from his art school days. She'd been throwing things out because she couldn't afford movers or storage. I didn't know it was worth anything, she said, staring at the floor. I'm sorry. I should have felt relief. Provenance. Innocent mistake. Case closed. But then she added, also, my dad used to talk about this one like it was his green coat. He said it wasn't his to sell. He said someone paid him to hide it. My throat went dry. Paid him to hide it. Patricia was thrilled, in a grim way. That's significant, she said. But it could also support the estate's claim. Dana listened with her arms crossed and said, so what? We still found it. Aaron looked at Dana and said softly, I don't have money. I'm living in my car some nights. I threw out my dad's stuff because I couldn't even afford a U-Haul. Dana didn't blink. That's not our problem. That was the moment I realized money wasn't just the plot of this story. It was changing the characters in real time, including me, because a part of me agreed with Dana, and I hated myself for it. The estate's lawyers escalated. They produced old photos of the painting in a wealthy couple's living room. They had a police report. They had a timeline. Patricia said we had two choices: fight for full ownership and risk losing everything, or negotiate a settlement where the painting could still sell and proceeds would be split. Dana wanted war. Why should we give them anything? She said. They had it, they lost it, we found it. I said, because lost might mean stolen, Dana. She leaned in and whispered, don't get moral on me now. You dragged it upstairs because you saw dollar signs. That hurt because it was true. Then twist number 3 dropped like a brick. Patricia called and asked if Dana had ever worked for the gallery connected to the original collector. It was a random question until she explained. The estate's filings mentioned a former assistant as a person of interest back in the day. Dana's face went pale in a way I'd never seen. No, she said. Why would you ask that? Patricia didn't accuse her. She just waited. After the call, Dana didn't yell. She didn't deflect. She went into the bathroom and locked the door. And I sat in the kitchen with my labeled envelopes and realized I didn't actually know my wife. Dana eventually told me, half told me, really, the way someone reveals a secret while still trying to control it. In her 20s, she'd interned at a small gallery in Connecticut. She'd been broke, living on ramen, dating a guy who liked expensive things he couldn't pay for. The gallery had handled private sales. People with money, people with art, people with quiet scandals. She said one night there was chaos. A couple came in screaming about a missing painting. The owner blamed staff. Dana got questioned. Nothing came of it. I didn't steal anything, she said. But her voice had that edge people get when they're more focused on being believed than being truthful. I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Did you know that painting was missing? She stared at me and said, I knew it was valuable. Not missing. Valuable. Then she said, when you brought it upstairs, I recognized it. My vision blurred. Not from tears, just from rage. You recognized it, I repeated. And you let me sign contracts. You let me pay a retainer. You let me. I thought it was fate, she said. And I can't explain how much I hated that word coming out of her mouth. I thought the universe, I said, is not going to pay my mom's medical bills when we get sued into the ground. Dana started crying then, real tears, and I realized the betrayal wasn't just that she knew. It was that she wanted the money enough to gamble with my life. Here's the false resolution, the part where I thought I could still be the responsible one and steer us back to normal. Patricia brokered a settlement framework. The auction would proceed, and after fees, proceeds would be divided, majority to the estate, a significant finder's portion to us, and a smaller hardship allocation to Erin for her role in unintentional disposal. Dana hated every percentage that wasn't 100. But I saw a number that still changed my life. Not 8 figures, but enough to pay off debt, secure my mother's care, and have breathing room for the first time in a decade. I told Dana, we take it. We close this. We move on. She looked at me like I was choosing poverty on purpose. But eventually she nodded, stiffly, like she was signing a bad deal. The auction house reinstated the sale. They sent us glossy catalogs with the painting photographed like a celebrity. They called it Woman in a Green Coat, circa 1974. I remember thinking, this is it. The chaos ends. The money arrives. We survive. I didn't understand yet that money doesn't end chaos. It just buys better lighting for it. The night before the auction, Dana went out for a drive. She'd been doing that a lot, claiming the stress made her restless. She came home after midnight, smelling like winter air and something sharp, cheap vodka. Maybe. She kissed my cheek like nothing happened and went to bed. The next morning, Patricia called, voice tight. The estate filed an emergency motion, she said. There's new information. Twist number 4. The estate had obtained a statement from Dana's old gallery boss. According to him, Dana's ex-boyfriend, her broke, expensive taste boyfriend, had been suspected of stealing the painting back then, and Dana had helped him move a large framed item out after hours. Dana denied it instantly. Too instantly. I was 22, she said. I don't even remember. But Patricia wasn't asking for memory. She was asking for damage control, because the settlement depended on us being innocent finders. And now Dana looked, on paper, like a person with prior knowledge and involvement. Meaning, our finder's portion could vanish. Dana exploded. She blamed the estate. She blamed Patricia. She blamed me for digging around and meeting Aaron. She even blamed my mother. Your family always needs something. And then, in the ugliest twist of all, she said, I should have taken it the first night and sold it quietly. That's the kind of sentence that makes you hear your marriage crack. Part 14. I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at my hands, imagining them as evidence. I thought about the first night standing by the dumpster. I thought about how quickly my sense of right and wrong had been replaced by what do we get. I called Erin in the morning and told her what was happening. She was quiet for a long time, then said, Your wife knew. I saw her when I was clearing out my dad's place. She asked what I was throwing away. She asked if I'd found anything valuable. I felt cold. I hadn't told Erin about Dana recognizing the painting. Erin didn't know Dana, which meant Erin wasn't guessing. Dana had been circling the painting before I ever touched it. She'd been hunting. When I confronted Dana, she didn't deny that either. She just said, I was trying to protect us. Protect. That word, weaponized. I realized then that the calm, rational person I thought I was, the one in control, had been outsourcing control to Dana because she sounded confident. And I'd been letting her because I wanted the money as badly as she did, just with cleaner hands. The auction still happened. Of course it did. Money has momentum. It sold for more than anyone predicted. Millions. Enough to make headlines. Enough to make enemies. After legal fees and the revised settlement, the estate took the lion's share. Erin got a check that made her cry, according to a text she sent me that just said, I can breathe. Our portion was still life-changing. Dana should have been relieved. Instead, she treated the reduced amount like theft, like the universe had shorted her. She started making plans anyway. A bigger house, a new car, investments she couldn't explain. She opened accounts I wasn't on. When I asked, she said, You don't get to control everything just because you found it first. I looked at my bank app one afternoon and realized she'd moved a chunk of the money, our money, into something called a management fund. I called the number attached to it and found out it was tied to a guy she'd been driving to see. Not a financial advisor. Not a fiduciary. A man with a history of helping people protect assets from spouses. I confronted her, and she didn't even pretend anymore. She said, I'm not losing half of this in a divorce. I said, very quietly, So you were planning a divorce? She shrugged like it was obvious. Like the money had always been the real marriage. I'm writing this from my brother's guest room because Dana and I are separated now. I paid the deposit for my mom's care yesterday, and for the first time in months I didn't feel panic doing it. I felt a hollow, Like I traded something intangible for solvency. The painting is gone. The money is here. My life is technically better. But I keep thinking about that woman in the green coat, half turned, like she'd heard her name. I keep thinking about how I used to believe I was responsible and in control. What I actually was, what I still am, if I'm being honest, is a person who found a fortune in the trash and didn't put it back. And once you touch money like that, you don't just learn who other people are. You learn who you are when the number gets big enough to justify anything.